Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paschati Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Mangolangaiti Girim Kripatamaham Vande Siguru Dinatarinam Mantrikalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bolo. Wow. Give me a second because the zoom on my camera is zoomed in a bit too much, and I just thought I fixed it, but I didn't. I think I have to zoom in and out to get it proper. Yeah, it is not cooperating. Okay. Yes, now it's normal. Now it's normal. So we've been on Saturdays, as you know, we've been talking about Prabhupada and how we can be influenced by his example. And I wasn't taking notes, so I don't even remember what we've covered. And initially, the initial idea was that you would present something about Prabhupada and then we would look at it in terms of its significance for us, how we should see that. And the foundational idea of these classes was that a lot of times we look at Prabhupada's transcendental nature and we can't relate to it. And so we're trying to connect between that transcendental nature and how it can relate to us, like what we can take from it in our lives. So, Hare Krishna. And usually I have something in my mind that to talk about in case you have nothing to suggest. I was absorbed in Gaur Purnima and other things, and I wasn't meditating on it too much, but I was meditating on something, and I don't know if we discussed it before, perhaps you would remember, but one of the qualities of Prabhupada that's quite outstanding is his belief and his faith in the words of his spiritual master. And how I think we had discussed maybe the idea of how he got instructions so many years ago, over 40 years before he could fully execute them, and how he never forgot them. We discussed that before, I'm sure. I've mentioned that many times. But did we discuss the idea of believing? Like sometimes you'll hear something from your Guru Maharaj and you just don't understand it, and it's hard to believe. Did we discuss that? Because there are various places where Prabhupada said, "I believe in his words," and when you talk about belief, that means you're saying you believe something that you can't prove to be true. If you can prove it to be true, then why would it be a belief? It just is. It's a fact. You know it. See, when you're talking about believing, it's something you can't necessarily verify, like a prediction of the future. Well, my Guru Maharaj said this would happen. I believed in his words. Or he said, do this, it will produce a certain result. Well, how would I know? So I have to believe. If he says, do this, it will produce a certain result. You could say, I know, I've seen it. So of course, I still believe in what he says, but not in the sense of the kind of faith that we're talking about. So what what happens when you come into a transcendental movement or you hear transcendental knowledge, you hear things which you cannot, some things which you cannot verify because they're transcendental. Until you're transcendental, you can't experience it. You don't experience it, right? So somebody who's transcendental is telling you, when you're transcendental, this is what you'll experience, or when you're transcendental, this is what you'll see, or this is what you'll understand. And right now, you don't understand it, or you understand only a little of it. And so to say, I believe in what he says, it means I believe that what he's saying, I will realize will happen. Or I think on a more practical level, what something that we run into is Srila Prabhupada says, do this. And we're thinking, what's the use of doing that? Nobody's interested, or no, it's going to turn people away or whatever. And, like I'll give an example. You may know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to do big, big exhibitions. He'd go to like downtown areas and do huge exhibitions, kind of like a circus almost, to attract people. And part of the exhibition was diorama exhibits, and dioramas are just in India, they're dolls. I think in India, not in India, there are dolls everywhere, but I think in India they make them out of straw and mud. And like when the exhibition is finally finished, there's like they throw them away. It's you don't store them, and it doesn't cost much to make. It's just mud and straw. So somehow that's a tradition. I don't know what they made theirs out of, but that was generally the tradition. Of course, we made ours out of other substance, maybe fiberglass. Anyway, so then one could think doll exhibitions like that sounds kind of, I don't know. Or maybe you'll think it's a good idea. Maybe you think it's not a good idea, but still, it's the thinking of our mind. And maybe you're thinking it's a good idea, but you're thinking it's a good idea in a different way than Srila Bhakti Siddhanta is seeing it as a good idea. So then he explains we should do this. It's a good idea. This is why it's a good idea. And our material um, vision may say, doesn't seem like that's like, what's the use of that? And so in Prabhupada's mission, he had started, or he wanted to start, or oh yeah, he had some of his artists go to India and learn the art of doll making. Did you know that? He sent them like 72 or something. So some of the original devotees who worked on the first, I think the first two and maybe only two, at least outside of India, because in India, you don't need ISKCON devotees to do that. You can hire people. So in the Los Angeles temple, if you ever go there, there's a museum, diorama exhibit, electronically controlled. And then there's one in Detroit also. I've never seen the one in Detroit. And I never caught on around ISKCON, but oh yeah, there's one in Delhi. Of course, that's India. Easier to do. But anyway, Prabhupada wanted it, he pushed it. We never like really understood the validity of it. So after those two, I don't think I'm not aware of any temples outside of India that did them. But anyway, it just shows that, of all the things Prabhupada could do, that's one of the things he did, which is interesting, isn't it? Because he had faith in that. Um, of course, book distribution, book distribution is there. And about book distribution, Prabhupada didn't, it seems that Prabhupada himself didn't, really have an insight into the value of book distribution beyond the words of his spiritual master that it should be done. And so, again, it's like, you know, you probably thought like this. Well, what is the use of distributing all these books? Nobody reads them anyway. And if they do, nobody can understand them anyway. You ever think like that? Or should I say, did anyone here not think like that? At some point, that thought goes through your mind. Um, People don't read, they don't read much. This is transcendental. It's difficult even for us to understand what to speak of people on the street. What's the point? We should distribute something else or whatever. And there may be some validity into those ways of thinking in which we can offer literature that's more understandable and more readable, or do other things that inspire people to read the books. So that's, I'm not minimizing that. But either you've thought that way or other devotees think that way. And so Prabhupada said, I followed, at one point Prabhupada said, I followed blindly. I didn't know the result. Like, why are you distributing these books? From a business sense, you would say, well, here's the plan, and this is what's going to happen. 1 year of distributing books, we'll build up an audience, and then the next year we'll do this, and then the third year, it wasn't like that. Prabhupada just said, my Guru Maharaj said to do it, so I don't know the result. I follow blindly. But interestingly, at the same time, Prabhupada said there'll be so many results from it. So it was as if on one hand, he's saying, well, I'm doing it because I was ordered to do it. I don't know the result. But on the other hand, meditating on the power of transcendental words, he could see the result. And if they read, if they touch the book, it's beneficial. If they read one word, it's Bhagavatam is so pure. Of course, we want them to go more than one word. We want them to understand. We want to inspire them to read so many things. But it's interesting, it seems like Prabhupada's initial impetus was, well, this is what my Guru Maharaj said to do. So I do it, and then Prabhupada could see the result later on, and he would talk about it. But I think it's significant that initial, I follow blindly. And so often Prabhupada used this phrase, I believed in his words. And I think there's a connotation there, or there's a context there, which is not everyone believes in the word, not everyone believed in the words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta exactly to the degree or to the broadness in which Prabhupada did. So when Prabhupada said, I believed in his words, it would be maybe not so significant if everyone believed in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's words the way Prabhupada did. It was like normal. If something's normal, you don't really talk about it so much, right? Isn't it? So it was not entirely normal. Obviously, when Prabhupada's saying I believed in his words, part of that means that Prabhupada came to the West. That one disciple amongst all the disciples, many of whom could have come or could have tried to come, but didn't come. So now let's put ourselves in Prabhupada's position. Nobody believes that Krishna consciousness can spread in the West. It's difficult to understand how, because Gaudiya Math and the whole history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism was preached amongst Indian people, often amongst higher classes of Indian people. But it wasn't preached to the people outside of Vedic culture, outside of Varnashram, outside of those who accept the Vedas. So there was a doubt in the minds of many, or at least some, who were disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and what to speak of the general populace, who thought that Westerners cannot accept Krishna consciousness, or worse, it's not even meant for them. They shouldn't even give it to them, you know. So when Prabhupada is saying, I believed in his words, then it's good for us to understand how people were thinking so we can understand Prabhupada's believing in those words is having to believe through all these other ideas. The Westerners could never be Krishna conscious. You shouldn't even try. When Mahaprabhu said every town and village, it was just some encouragement. It was not to be taken factually. These were the things some people were believing. Did you know that? That some people thought it's not really every town and village. It's just like if I say, come in here, go out and do a concert, get 100,000, you'll get 100,000 people. It's like encouraging. And Kamini is thinking, I'm not going to get 100,000 people. That's not possible. But it's encouragement, saying, well, but that's encouraging. You have faith in me that I could attract that many people. Okay, let me try to do something bigger. So that's how they kind of thought of it. Every town and village was more like a hyperbole. It's just, yeah, 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 but that's not going to happen. So amongst all these doubts and the fact, and also we have the fact that Gaudiya Math tried to spread Krishna consciousness in London and failed, which is, another indicator, at least for those who want to look at things empirically, that it's not going to work. We already tried. They're malechas. They're outside Vedic culture. They're materialistic, and they're not interested. They're not able to understand. They're not following principles. And we already tried and we see it doesn't work. So now when you look at that context and then you say, I believed in his words, and it's like, okay, this is like, it makes more sense. It's more powerful, isn't it? Because I'm believing through so much doubt of the people around me. And so what we learn from this is that, I mean, you could say Prabhupada never had any doubts, but for the sake of edifying our own lives by Prabhupada's example, we should say that because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said it, Prabhupada believed it. He believed it through all the doubts of others around him. And he believed it through what might have been empirical evidence. So we see that when Prabhupada was on the boat, he's writing in his poem, and he's questioning, like, I don't know, like from a material perspective, how would people understand Bhagavatam? These are the most materialistic people in the world, Americans, the most materially advanced country, the most materialistic people. How are they going to understand Srimad Bhagavatam? That's like impossible, right? Impossible. So he's expressing that. And here he is coming to teach them Bhagavatam, so you could say, well, you express that doubt before you leave India and then you decide not to go. Yeah, how are they going to understand Bhagavatam? Why waste the time and money? I'll just preach in India. of course, we know even in India it wasn't going well. So here we see that even from an empiric perspective, Prabhupada is, I don't want to say doubtful, but he's faithful. He knows there's a reason he's there and he knows magic can happen. So he doesn't have that doubt. But from the empirical perspective, just analyzing who is my audience, where they're at, who am I, and what am I representing, you put it all together. It's like, how is anyone going to understand this? So then you could say, well, if that's how you feel, why are you doing this? Why did you come? What's the whole point? And the whole point is my Guru Maharaj said, do it and it's going to happen. And so basically, Prabhupada's coming with this faith that's going to happen, but practically speaking, has no clue how. It doesn't seem like possible. So that's where faith comes in. Faith means you believe in something that you can't understand how it would happen, or as we said, something in the future is going to happen and you don't understand. Now, what's also interesting is that when the Krishna conscious movement took hold in America, you could say maybe 69, 70, 71. So Prabhupada could see it's actually like a plant, you know, you have this little seedling and then goes through the winter and you don't know if it's going to live. And then spring comes and all of a sudden it shoots up and you're like, wow, it made it. It's like it's going to be a tree. And I can see it. This is going to be a huge tree. So there was a point in which Prabhupada saw, yeah, it's happening. And then Prabhupada started making his own predictions about the future, how Krishna consciousness would spread, or at least how it could spread, the potential. So it went from faith without proof that his faith was valid in a sense. I mean, obviously valid because Bhaktisiddhanta said it, but beyond that, he couldn't prove it, and to the point where it was proven, and then he started making his own predictions. So I think it's significant that on many, many occasions, Prabhupada talked to, said this, I had faith in his words. I believed in his words. Because he was saying that as an example for us, that you'll get words from your spiritual master, or Prabhupada will give us words which won't make sense entirely. But as followers of Prabhupada, we believe he said this, and this doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. But he said it, and so we believe it, and then we try to apply it in a way which works and which kind of we try to make sense out of what doesn't make sense. And then sometimes you can make sense out of it, and sometimes you can't. But even if you can't, um, the instruction is there, and sometimes you can't make sense out of it until you follow the instruction. And then in the execution of the instruction, you'll make sense out of it. And that's, I think, what happened with Prabhupada. It all fell into place. And then he made all these predictions about Krishna consciousness succeeding in the future. Now, there are predictions Prabhupada made that never happened. So that would be a cause of doubt. Doesn't mean they won't happen. And we can say conditions changed. So his prediction would have been true, but conditions in the world changed, or conditions within ISKCON changed, or we didn't continue at the same intensity and pace as we did during Prabhupada's time when he made that prediction. Because Prabhupada said, if you continue preaching the way you're doing, this will happen. But we didn't continue at that pace. But in any case, um, we may not understand everything Prabhupada said, but I think the point is, what we learn from Prabhupada is that if your Guru Maharaj is very intense or strong about something, very, very clear about something, and you're not clear, obviously you want to get clarity, But if you can't get full clarity, it's not an excuse for not doing what he said or not trying to understand in some way or not accepting this. Of course, there's times when Prabhupada said something and it was only relevant to that situation. So then following it now may not make sense. But when you're giving general instructions, then you don't always have to understand everything before you follow. We don't like following blindly, but my point is sometimes you can't understand. So what are you going to do now? Until I understand, I can't act. Okay, that's reasonable. We can accept that. But what about where you're not advanced enough to understand, or you don't have the vision of the future to understand? Then what do you do? Not act because you don't understand? No, it can't be like that. So that that is important. This morning I was listening to some shorts that were titled Prabhupada's Final Words. I don't think they were his final words, but they were final in their implication because he was talking about the future when he's not going to be here. This was like 1975 or something. And the basic gist was, I'm not qualified, but I followed my Guru Maharaj and things were successful. So you follow, don't change it, just follow it, just deliver it. As I've given you, you deliver it, don't, and then it'll be successful. So fortunately, and I think we all understand this, how fortunate we are that Prabhupada didn't change things. He just put them in a blender so we could, blended it up so we could, baby food, digest it, right? That's basically what he did. He just took transcendental knowledge, threw it in a blender, and then spoon fed us, you know. Isn't it? More or less, right? Um, but he always stressed, don't change it, deliver it as I've given it to you. Make it palatable to people. Blend it up so they can digest it, sweeten it up, whatever you have to do, spice it up. But the original ingredients, the carrots and the whatever you're putting in the blender, you're not going to compromise on those. So we'll get some. We won't use carrots. We'll use, what do they call those? The white carrots. I forget. It looks like a carrot, but it's white. Parsnips. Oh, we'll use parsnips, not carrots. No, but the recipe is carrots. So that was Prabhupada's mood. And so he would say, I just heard this morning, he said, I'm not very smart. I'm not very this and I'm not very that. But I followed. Now, here's an interesting point to meditate on because these are situations you're all going to confront in the future, at least especially those of you who are younger, who are going to be around in that horrid day when there's no Prabhupada disciples, although there'll be obviously senior devotees, highly qualified devotees. But there's not going to be anyone on the planet you can go up to and say, did Prabhupada ever say this? Who could say, yes, I heard him say this. No, I didn't. And you could ask five Prabhupada, if you ask 10 Prabhupada disciples and said, no, I never heard him say that, probably he never did. So that horrid day is going to come when none of the Prabhupada's disciples will be there. And then the next group of senior devotees who are now like 50 years old, been in the movement 30, almost 40 years, they're going to go also at some point, So it's not just Prabhupada disciples, And you're all going to be left, and your responsibility is to try to understand what Prabhupada taught and deliver it as he taught it. That's your responsibility. And that will be the success of the movement and deliver it in a way which people can digest it. So I was having a discussion with some devotees and you know, they were saying that a lot of people, younger people nowadays, well, it's probably always true, but maybe more so nowadays, join ISKCON, but they say, I don't like institutions. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, institution is a necessary evil. So, institutions are not people's favorite thing, right? I don't like institutions. But just from a historical, sociological perspective, institutions are those vehicles that whose purpose is to maintain those teachings. Because without the institution, then it's all individuals, and individuals will naturally concoct or change things over time. It's like it's like the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata was never disseminated through a disciplic succession in the way the Vedas are. So the Mahabharata, there's like all kinds of different tellings of the Mahabharata because it's just one person saying and one person saying. And and as you probably have noticed in your life, you've heard the same story told by different people and it's different, slightly different. And they all heard it from the same person and they retold it because when they heard it, he said he had 10 wives and they heard in their head it was 12 because they ate 12 chapatis that morning. Yeah, I mean, it's like crazy, you know. It's it's like you retell it. Oh, he stayed up all night. No, no, he stayed up all month. No, no, he stayed up all year. You know, it's like you're hearing all night, but your head says all year for some reason because there was another story someone stayed up all year. So that's just the way it is, right? So an institution's goal or function is to preserve that knowledge so that every successive generation doesn't get an adulterated version of it, right? And so if what Prabhupada gave us becomes adulterated, if Srimad Bhagavatam becomes adulterated, and it's been adulterated, that's the tradition that we've seen historically adulterated by different so-called sampradayas. Then, as Krishna says in the fourth chapter of the Gita, that evam parampara praptam imam rajarshyo vidu sakalena mahata yoga nashta. Nashta means destroyed. Yoga nashta parantapa. This evam parampara praptam, it's received through disciplic succession. Imam rajarshyo vidu, and the great kings understood it. It was passed down. But kala over time, sakalena maha, over a great time. Yoga nashta parantapa. This science that I've explained, it becomes nashta, destroyed. So this was confusing to devotees. So devotees asked Prabhupada, said, well, what does that mean it's destroyed? Because you'll see, Bhagavad Gita is being taught almost eternally in a sense. It's always there. And Prabhupada said, yeah, it's being taught, but the wrong thing is being taught. That's what Krishna means by it being destroyed. It's not that people weren't teaching Bhagavad Gita. They were not teaching it as it is. As we saw when Prabhupada wrote his as it is, he said, yeah, there are 600 other editions currently, and not one of them can make anyone a devotee. So, so that's the danger. That's the obvious danger. So institutions preserve that knowledge, preserve the knowledge which is power, the potent knowledge as it is. And I think we can see that's why Prabhupada was so focused on preservation of knowledge. So here, Prabhupada, he's the only representative of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the West. So it's his job to preserve everything that he's understood and learned from the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Gita, other Shastras from his gurus, from the other acharyas, and give it to us exactly. Like this is all the ingredients, it's the medicine. Give it to us exactly and feed it to us in a way we can digest it. And that's our job also. And not always an easy job, but that's the job of the institution. So um, all of us have that job. That's what we take into the future is whatever we've learned. We try to assimilate it as clearly and as best we can, and practice it, and then give it to others. And that is based on our original thought for this at least section of the talk, which was, I believe in his words. So part of our job is to believe in the words that we can't yet prove, or that maybe don't make total sense. Sometimes something doesn't make sense that is sensible. We just doesn't make sense to our brain, and we have to make sense out of it, right? And sometimes something on face value doesn't make sense. It's because we don't understand it deeply. And as you deeply understand it, it'll make sense. Just like we have ample experience of how younger devotees are challenged to understand. And so we call fanaticism basically somebody doesn't understand something and they're super enthusiastic about it, about what they don't understand. So they, it's like, okay, let's go. And you run out the door and then you turn around, you go, where are we going? Like that. You've seen that, like super enthusiastic, but later on you realize you don't know where you're going. So it's our duty, to understand Prabhupada deeply in a 360 degree angles, because the more we understand Prabhupada, obviously, the more we can give Prabhupada as he is to others. And the more we understand it, the more easily we can help other people understand it. And if we don't understand it, then we'll create religious fanatics because we'll be one. And you can only create what you are, basically. So um, I believe in his words. We try to understand deeply, but what we can't understand, we still execute. That's the idea. And then we will understand by executing. So that was my thought on that topic. Does anyone have any comment or question on that? Or, um, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. We have an interesting question. Uh, uh, in LA, it's a top 10 place to visit. Wow, she's talking about the museum. Hare Krishna. The right of your note says, coming from book distribution, I know books are time bombs. Yeah. I mean, of course, the books, even if people don't read them, they're definitely not going to read them if the books are sitting in a warehouse. At least if they're sitting on their shelf in their home, there's a chance, right? And, you never know which way the world is going. We couldn't believe the world uh, is the way it is. At least I couldn't believe that or understand it when I was young. As I told you before, when I was first a devotee, if you told someone you're a vegetarian, they would think you're going to die, like you're not going to get enough protein. Could you believe it? That was like common knowledge. Vegetarian, how do you do that? Well, you just eat carrots and lettuce, like that kind of thing. And where will you get your protein? And you'd probably be anemic, That was so the world has come, what speak of karma? If you believe in karma, you were a nutcase. Past lives, you're crazy. So the world has come a long way. So, we don't know where the world's going, and we don't know um, the kind of interest people will have. But I can definitely say the interest in spirituality is, at least in Eastern spirituality, is much greater than when I joined. So, and who knows where the world's going. So, and Radhavi note says, time bombs. Yeah, she has experience, or they're time bombs. Yeah. At some point, someone's ready, they will read it. Prabhupada said that, we will succeed, our movement will succeed by book distribution. So, in some, and then the argument is, well, some places distributed a lot of books and they're not succeeding. Well, maybe visibly not succeeding because you're looking at success in terms of numbers of people that come to your temple or move into the ashram. Well, that's one indication of success. That's one metric. But, we don't always know the effect. We don't know how many people's lives have been touched and changed, right? Not everyone who gets a book lives near a temple, or even if they do, would want to come. So, but it is a fact that sometimes when we emphasize book distribution, we de-emphasize everything else. And therefore, the expanse of book distribution actually decreases other important programs. So we don't want to do that either, right? Um, Chaitanya Dasi says, or somebody says, Srila Prabhupada took Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order and went to the West, but the outcome is completely different. Oh, both Ban Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada took Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order and went to the West, but the outcome was completely different. Was that the difference due to the quality of their faith? Well, I was told a story that when Ban Maharaj came back from England, he met with Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, and he said that you can't convince these people. Western people cannot be convinced. They put up arguments, and I think he said, they put up arguments that cannot be answered. So Sridhar Maharaj and Prabhupada said, so what are the arguments? And they defeated all these arguments. Like whatever Ban Maharaj said, they defeated. And after they defeated them, I think it was Sridhar Maharaj who said, today the West has been defeated by India. Something like that. So, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur called Ban Maharaj back because he was spending a lot of money and there wasn't much of a result. So I'm not really in a position to speak about his faith, but from that story, it looks like he really didn't know how to relate to these people. And when you have deep faith in an order of your guru and you execute the order, but you're not successful, you always think, how can we be more successful? Like the Guru Maharaj says, go out and do Harinam, and that will save the world. And you go out and do Harinam, and it doesn't seem like the world's any better off than it was. Of course, things take time, but then you consider, is there a better way to do Harinam or a different location? Or, should we chant other mantras, not just Hare Krishna? As Prabhupada said, you can chant Upanishad, for example, or Hari Haraya Nama on Sankirtan. So, or maybe we should go to a college instead of downtown, or maybe we should sit down instead of jumping up and down. Maybe we should jump up and down instead of sitting down. Maybe you should wear dhoti and sari. Maybe we should wear coat, pant, and tie. It's like, but you don't minimize the potency of the process. You have faith in the process. So I think we can safely answer yes to this question based on the discussion we're having. That Prabhupada said, I believed in his words. And as I was saying, distinguishing Prabhupada from those around him. So Prabhupada is not one to say, I believe in his words, others didn't, because, but he's saying belief in the words is your success formula, basically, right? That's where you get your strength, you get your determination. Um, you know, I'll take you back to Vancouver, where I went to Vancouver in November of 1970. So I'll take you back. And you try to imagine you're living in the temple with us. There's four of us in the city of Vancouver. The Hare Krishna movement is four of us in the city of Vancouver. It's one of the bigger cities of Canada, one of the main cities, the main city on the west coast of Canada. So at that time, there must have been 1 or 2 million people in that city and four of us. So our job was to make a few million people Krishna conscious, the four of us. So the four of us would go 6 days a week downtown to the exact same spot. We'd leave like 10:30, take a bus, go downtown, get there like 11:15, and we would do Harinam till 6 o'clock. We'd stop for lunch. We'd bring lunch with us and we'd do Harinam. And there's actually a picture. Someone sent me a picture of us doing it. And so basically what's going on is throngs of people are walking by us as if we're not there. I mean, after a while, because we go there every day and people have seen us. So, maybe the first time they see you, it's something they want to find out. So they're ignoring us and we're out there all day chanting. And so without faith, we would think, what's the point of doing all this? People don't even, care. They just ignore us. And we would distribute like eight, I don't know, maybe 20 back to Godheads in 6 hours amongst all of us. So that doesn't seem like anybody's interested, does it? You're out there for 7 hours, and that's like 2 or 3 magazines every hour. That's like one magazine every 20 minutes. So how many people do you approach in 20 minutes when the street is packed? Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Like, just, do the math. It's like every minute's like 20 people at least, right? And so that's 400 people you approach and one takes a magazine. Well, someone took a magazine before that, but they didn't give you any money and they gave it back. So you're going to hundreds of people who are saying, no, no, don't bother me. Get out of here. Get a job. I'm not interested. Do something valuable. And easily you could lose faith, right? Maybe I should go back to school, get a job. Yeah. But it's because of Prabhupada's faith that we had faith. And if Prabhupada didn't have faith, we would not have faith, right? Yes. So if Prabhupada didn't have faith, you'd think us little new bhaktas and bhaktinis would have had faith. No, we would all given up. It's like, this is useless. We were getting harassed also, often getting arrested. I got arrested like 5 times. You want to know what it's like to go to jail? I can tell you. Having been there many occasions in the Sankirtan movement. So there are many stories of opposition. I was once driven out of a little town in America by the police. I mean, our whole Sankirtan party was escorted out of the town. They didn't want us there because we were weird. So you're like distributing books and you don't want people to know you're a Hare Krishna because people think Hare Krishnas are weird. Like, it's like you could ask, why would you even do this? Why would you go out? People think you're crazy. we had an issue of Back to God, and it said spiritual communism. I showed it to this man, and I showed it to this man once, and he called the police on me. I go, they're preaching communism. The police came up. You're speaking communism. This is illegal in America. Or yeah. Anyway, for those of you who just joined, we started an hour ago to the daylight savings. So you'll know for next time. It is. We put our clocks ahead an hour. So that means, well, it used to be 9:30, is now 10:30. So if you just came now, that was the normal time before daylight saving. But we pushed our clock ahead. So you missed an hour. I will pray for you. We will cry for you. So you could ask, where did you get your faith from? And we can say, well, we got it from Prabhupada because, one time devotees were arrested and Prabhupada said, it's no problem. Krishna was born in jail. And he said, do Harinam in jail. It's like, it's not a problem. Otherwise, we might think, what's the point? We go out every day and we just get arrested. Like people don't care. Or you go out every day, 6 days a week, 7 hours a day, and you have your Sunday feast, and like 3 people show up. It's like, why am I doing this? I could like get a job and make some money and enjoy. And I'm doing so much austerity and nobody's coming. And we were very, very poor at that time also. And so we would wonder, will we ever have money? Will this movement ever go anywhere? Because the rate we're going, it's like really difficult. We go to universities. We'd go once a week. In Vancouver, there's 2 universities. We go to each university each week and go out there. We chant all day at the university, right? And between both universities going out once a week forever, one person became a devotee. It's like, you ever have that experience? You like work for years, one person becomes a devotee, and 3 weeks later they leave. It's like, what have I accomplished? Finally, they become a devotee, and then, nah, 3 weeks later, nah, I saw an article on the internet. I don't want to be part of this. And it's like, so Prabhupada was telling us, like, no, this is going to spread. What you're doing is working. It's going to, he would have to tell us things we couldn't see. No, this is changing the world. It's going to change the world. Just keep doing it. Do it to please Krishna. Don't worry about pleasing anyone else. So he kept motivating us because of his faith. And he would give us transcendental vision. He said, no, anyone who hears the holy name, that's the beginning of their spiritual life. So all these people who are ignoring us, they're hearing the holy name. Right. Even to the extent, which you've probably heard, where Prabhupada said, even if they write a bad article on us, they have to read the name Krishna. So they'll chant Krishna so many times, and that will be to their eternal benefit. And the bad things they read in the article, they said they'll forget. Over time, they'll forget. So Prabhupada was very positive, obviously, about all these things. And so it was his faith in Mahaprabhu, his faith in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that kept us going. I don't think we could have gone without it. But now, what we're trying to do in this class is look at Prabhupada's faith and transfer that to our hearts to understand how we need, although this sounds strange to say, we need the same faith that Prabhupada had. We need that faith. We need that same level of faith that Prabhupada had. That whatever Prabhupada said We believe it, even if we don't, we believe it, even if we don't believe it. The one time Prabhupada said, when my Guru Maharaj is right, he's right, and when he's wrong, he's right. So it's like, well, how could he be wrong? What does that mean? It means I think he's wrong. I think that's wrong. Of course, sometimes he might say something and it's not factually correct. You can say, no, Prabhupada, it's actually like this. It's not something like Shastric or some prediction or something. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, go to the West, you'll be successful. And maybe Prabhupada was thinking, how is it possible? How am I qualified? And so even though I think this is not going to work, he's right. And so he knows it's going to work. So when he's wrong, and I think he's not wrong, but I think he's wrong. When he's right, he's right. When he's wrong, he's right. When I think he's wrong, he's right. So Prabhupada had that kind of faith. And I think we can safely say when he's wrong, he's right, is that other, probably some disciples would say, oh, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said this, but it's not right. And Prabhupada's saying, no, it is right. You think he's wrong, but it's right. So the success of the Krishna consciousness movement is going to be our adherence to Prabhupada's instructions, like very careful adherence to his instructions. And it's very easy as time goes by, Sakalayanaha Mahata, Yoga Nashta Parantava. It's very easy as time goes by for those instructions to get clouded, misunderstood, compromised, or even, unfortunately, perverted. I mean, look at Christianity. It's a good example, right? In Christianity, some Christians say you can't follow Jesus's example. Nobody, no human can follow it. It's like, well, that's unfortunate. That's an unfortunate position to be in. So imagine your guru saying, you cannot follow the example of the acharyas. Okay, so let's go to the movies then. Like, why try? Right? So then I can't follow the example, so I develop a theology that says all I can do is get mercy. That's the only way I can be saved. I can't do anything beyond that, and I can only try my best to follow his instructions, but only Jesus can actually follow. Like, well, that's where it goes. Could you imagine? You come back in your next life and you go to Bhagavatam class and the teacher says, actually, we can't really follow Prabhupada's example. You can try, but you're never going to follow it. And Mahaprabhu's mercy is so great. If you just chant Hare Krishna, then you'll go back to Godhead. That's not the same philosophy, is it? So the four regular principles go out there. Yeah, who can follow them anyway? Nobody can follow, especially the fourth principle. Why pretend, nobody can follow anyway? And, so many devotees drink coffee and whatever, It's just probably just be real, It's like that was Prabhupada's time. It was a different age, Prabhupada's disciples, they're different. Nowadays, nobody can follow. Why are we preaching, following this? It's, everybody's lying and cheating and behind closed doors, they're not following. That's what will come. You just chant Hare Krishna, Gauranga's mercy, that's all you need. That could happen, right? Or worse, as some of the Sahajis groups do, say, well, Prabhu, if you want to understand Radha and Krishna, you have to, and the gopis, you have to get your own gopis and do hoochie coochie with your gopis, and then you'll understand Radha and Krishna. Now that to us, that's like, wait a minute, are they really saying that? Is anyone that dumb that would say that? Well, they must be smoking a lot of marijuana to say that. Yeah, but they do say that. Isn't that inconceivable? That's like if you didn't know there was a group that said this, and I said, how much would you bet that in the future some devotees would say that? You'd say, I won't bet anything. That's insane. Well, they're saying it. Hare Krishna. So I think that underscores the need for preservation, careful preservation of what Prabhupada taught. And of course, as we said, we all have to understand clearly what he taught to preserve it. Otherwise, we'll carry on a disciplic succession of misunderstandings. So, um, so the answer is yes. Prabhupada's faith is very intense, very. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in one of his pranam mantras, apasiddhanta, this word is used, burudapa, apasiddhanta. Apasiddhanta means against the conclusion of Shastra. And so this pranam mantra says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not tolerate any words which were against the conclusions of Rupa Goswami. So this is the position of the Acharya, to correct misconceptions in philosophy. And so Prabhupada is giving it to us. And if you want to appreciate Prabhupada, go online and listen to a few bogus gurus. And after you hear them, you're like, oh my God, did he say that? That's insane. And you're like, thank you, Prabhupada. Because if I didn't have you, I'd be believing in this guru who said something crazy things, whatever. You've all heard it, the energy, the universe, all these impersonal ideas, it's like, that's like, they're taking God away from us. They're taking our relationship with Krishna away from us and speaking some crazy idea. So I think it should be clear now how important it is to preserve as is what Prabhupada gave. Yes? Okay, we can go to the next question if there is one. I quoted this verse. You see, if you look at the verse, you go down in the word meanings. The second to last word is nashta. Nashta means destroyed. Prabhupada translates it as scattered. The knowledge became scattered. It's like, yeah, scattered means, well, there's a little piece of truth here amidst all the garbage that you're speaking. So it's like the whole thing is not, it's not coherent in one place, in one piece. It's scattered. Different people have a little bit of truth. Hare Krishna. Our appreciation of Prabhupada is that he gave it to us. Yeah. I want to tell you a story, perhaps you know, and this relates to the story I was telling where we go out and chant and we would get ignored and we'd think, well, like, what's the point? What are we actually doing? And as you know, gradually the interest in vegetarianism, veganism, and Eastern spirituality started growing. Yoga became popular, kirtan became popular, all these things. So this was happening during Prabhupada's time, and Hari Sari asked Prabhupada, he said, is this due to the influence of our movement? And Prabhupada said, yes. This is like all invisible influence. Like, I don't see anything. I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I don't see anything. And Prabhupada's saying, no, the environment is being purified. And as a consequence of that environment, more and more people are being interested in spiritual life. More and more people are becoming vegetarian, accepting spiritual ideas, at least valuing them in a way that never happened before. So I think that's really important, especially when you think nothing's happening. That Prabhupada's saying, by our Sankirtan and book distribution, the atmosphere of the world is being changed. So another story you may have heard before. If you've listened to enough of my classes, you've probably heard this story, but what I've noticed is it takes about 3 times to really remember something. So if I tell the same story over, you'll think, oh yeah, I remember that. But you could never tell the story on your own because you forgot. But it's in there. You know, like you say, I forgot, I can't tell the story. As soon as someone tells the story, you could finish it. Like you didn't forget. It's in there, but it's like locked. So by hearing these stories again, they become unlocked. So now I forgot the story. I shouldn't do introductions to my stories because then I forget. So somebody tell me, what were we talking about? What was the sentence before? Um, so I can remember. Oh yeah,
The changes, the
changes.
changes in the world because the movement they were invisible.
Yeah. Um, I can't remember. I'll remember later. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Maybe some of you know the story I'm going to tell. Maybe you can tell it. What story was I going to tell? Who knows? Anybody know? Chaitanya Das, you know the story I was going to tell. Yeah, do ever I tell you like I'm gonna tell a story and you go, yeah, I know what he's gonna say. Did you know what one I was gonna say this time? No. Okay. We'll have to wait. We'll have to keep you in suspense. We're all being kept in suspense, including myself, so I can remember. I forgot the context where I was going. So hopefully I'll remember the context. Um, mm,
Oh,
yeah.
Anna is writing that it was about the Mayapur walk and the war.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
Exactly.
know, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. I forgot. Okay. So I was there. This is 1975. So put yourself in my shoes. You're in Mayapur, maybe 20 devotees, 15 go on a walk with Prabhupada. And they're just, there's not much there, and they take a walk through the fields. It's all fields. And I think they walk through the fields, go up Bhaktisiddhanta Road, and come back like an hour later, 45 minutes later. And so what we would do is that some of the devotees who went on the walk would stay back, and all of us, not all of us, but many of us, I'd say maybe like 50 of us or so, would would so Prabhupada would come back, go up to his room or go in the temple, and then a couple of the devotees who were on the morning walk would stay, and there'd be a group of us right where Prabhupada was going into the temple or upstairs. They would stay, there'd be a group of us, and they would tell us what Prabhupada said. What did Prabhupada say? Because we always wanted to hear. What did he say? What did he say? Everything Prabhupada said. What did he say? We wanted to hear everything. Um, and now you've all heard so many things that Prabhupada said, but we were getting it like first time. So it's different, like what did he say? Because it's like they say something new we've never heard before. And so they said, Prabhupada said there's going to be a world war, which was like, okay, so imagine you're there. I was 25. You're 25 years old. It's the first time you're in India. You have 108% faith in Prabhupada and everything he says. And he says there's going to be World War III. And you know what World War III means. It's not just for us Americans, not just some people fighting in Europe. This is nuclear war. And anything can happen. We have no idea. So we're all kind of freaked out. And the Prabhupada didn't say exactly when, but he said it, and we believed it. Okay, World War III. Okay, better distribute a lot of books before they all get burnt up, and better get say it's going to be nuclear war. Better read this book before it disintegrates. So anyway, as you notice, there hasn't been World War III yet, and that was 1975. So Satyavrat Maharaj, a few years later after that, maybe a year after that, said, Prabhupada, there's no World War III. You predicted that, and what's happening. And Prabhupada said, because of your Sankirtan, book distribution, Harinam like this, Prasadam distribution, it's purified the atmosphere. Then Prabhupada said, Krishna changed his mind. So, I mean, think about this. Just think about this. Like, we think, well, nobody takes our movement seriously, and on the world stage, it's like, what influence do we have, right? Or just a bunch of crazy people, guys wearing diapers, jumping up and down on the street, girls all dressed up and swirling around like, there's no tomorrow, like these guys are not serious. They're just jokesters. They got nothing better to do, dropouts, failures, losers. You know, we're not we're not like in people's minds as like the go-to organization when the world is crashing. World's crashing, so let's go to the Hare Krishna temple and get answers. We're not there yet, right? Are we? No. Prabhupada's saying World War III was averted by the Hare Krishna movement. I like just sleep on that one. If you ever think this movement doesn't have potency, like maybe the whole world would be blown up if it wasn't for the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, that's a big thing to say. But in some way, Prabhupada is saying that it was averted. And you could say there's so many political, sociological, historical reasons that doesn't make sense. Anyway, these are the things that we can't see. And this is where faith comes in. So knowing that, then we can be enthusiastic about spreading Krishna consciousness, even when it seems like nothing's happening, right? Like I was in Croatia for Rath Yatra a couple of years ago. And, Rath Yatra is kind of a big thing, like 100 devotees, right? Something like that. And, sometimes you go on Harinam with you and your two buddy brahmacharis and like everyone ignores you. But it's hard to ignore 100 people. But somehow in Croatia, they managed to ignore 100 people. Like, I don't know how they did it. It doesn't usually happen, in other places. But they did. It was like 100 Hare Krishnas. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Let's go get an ice cream. So, and we think, like, what was the use of doing that Rath Yatra? You bring 100 people out and still they ignore you. Well, the vibration is purifying the environment. That's what's happening. People are seeing Lord Jagannath. There's all these things that we hear, but we don't see anything happening. And Prabhupada's saying, no, it's not like it necessarily immediately it's happening. The atmosphere is being purified. Things are changing. Did you know, I heard, I can't verify this, but in 1992, there was a big earthquake that hit Los Angeles. Los Angeles gets a lot of earthquakes, fires, and landslides. I think something's going on in LA Krishna doesn't like, or Maya doesn't like, because they're really getting hit hard. And this was a really bad earthquake, maybe the worst. These earthquakes, they knock apartment buildings over, and hundreds of people or thousands die, like that. And there was some psychic who said, there is a person, and I don't know who it is, but his name is Dwarkadish, and he saved LA from devastation. That's what I was told. Isn't that funny? So it's like, we don't have the vision to see all these things. A psychic saw it. What? I don't know. Of course, that's a good story to make up. Maybe some devotee made it up, urban legend. But anyway, the point is that Prabhupada could see things we couldn't see. Prabhupada had even he couldn't see it, but he had faith, so he saw it through his faith, and he would relate that faith to us, so that you go on spreading Krishna consciousness, it's going to have benefit. It's a slow process, because you could look at, hey, what influence do we have? 16 years and still, it's like people still think we're just whatever, not of great significance to the world. So you go on with faith. Prabhupada said we are changing the world, and we are in our own way. We can do a much better job, for sure. It's not to minimize, or it's not to say that just going out and jumping up and down is enough. There's a million things that have to be done, and we can do everything better, and we should. And we don't sit on our laurels thinking, well, it's all going to happen, just take prasadam and give out gulab jamans on the street and everyone will go back to Godhead. That's there also, but we can do better than that. That's the idea. Okay. People say you don't get protein in vegetarian food. Yeah, try pistachios. Did you know that pistachios have all 8 amino acids? Did you know that? What to speak of lentils and peanuts and garbanzo, chana, chickpeas. Chana is the Hindi name, chickpeas or garban. Super high in protein. Milk, of course, milk products. Did you know that it's not healthy to get too much protein? Did anyone ever tell you that most people get too much? It's not healthy. Okay. So, does Guru give instructions based on the capabilities of his disciple? If a disciple feels that he has limitations on the path that Guru is instructing, what should one do? First question, yes, generally he gives instructions based on the capabilities of his disciples, although, of course, there are general instructions for everyone. But the Guru gives as far as general instructions, the Guru gives so many general instructions that everybody can find service with one of those instructions. If you can't be a pujari, you can be a book distributor. If you can't be a book distributor, you can be a cook. If you can't be a cook, you can be an administrator. If you can't be an administrator, you can be a kirtaniya. If you can't be a kirtaniya, you can be a teacher. There's so many instructions. If you can't distribute the books, and you can form groups where you'll read the books and explain them like that. So, in terms of specific instruction, generally, if the Guru didn't think you could do it, he wouldn't ask you. Or he might say, well, just try it. Let's see what happens. If you fail, well, we know that you're not suited for this service. But it's bhakti, it's service to Krishna. It's not a loss. So you can try like that. And if the disciple feels that he has limitations on the path the Guru is instructing, what should one do? There's two possibilities. One, you can try, and you can say, Guru Maharaj, I'm probably going to mess this up, but do you want me to try? Because I'm not good at this. And let him decide. I think the consideration of not doing it is, will you waste money? Will you waste a lot of time? Or will you impact others in a negative way? So if it's not time consuming, it's not expensive, and your failure is not going to impact anybody, why not try? Because maybe you'll succeed. Guru Maharaj wants me to give a class, and I'm not good at it. Worst thing that can happen is everyone falls asleep in the class. So that's not the worst thing in the world, right? And then well, they'll just call you in when devotees are tired and they need to sleep. We'll call you in to give class because your classes put everyone to sleep. So sometimes we all need to sleep. But so at least you tried, and now your Guru Maharaj will never ask you to give another class again. That was the worst class we all ever heard. I don't think you're meant to give classes. Yeah. And find some other service. So, but at least you tried. Um, so that idea is there, that if your Guru Maharaj really wants something and you know he really wants something and he's emphasizing it, then you can think, well, it's a service to try, even if I don't think I can succeed. So that's a mentality. And that was Prabhupada's mentality. Prabhupada had no idea he would succeed and he didn't think he was qualified. But his Guru Maharaj asked him to do it, so he tried. So, and in a sense, there was no loss. You can die on the battlefield trying. That's glorious. And one of Prabhupada's godbrothers thought that, in his own words, he thought Prabhupada's attempt to spread Krishna consciousness in America was ludicrous. Chaitanya Dasi, can you give us a definition of ludicrous can you ask Google? Ludicrous means like completely ridiculous. Like why are you even trying to spread Krishna consciousness in the West? This is like useless. This is like, it's like some little 5-year-old trying to lift 100 pounds or 500 pounds. That's called ludicrous. There was a rapper, I think, called Ludacris, wasn't there? Yeah, it's like if I tell you, no, Abdul says, tomorrow I'm going to deliver all of London. And we're like, that's ludicrous. You can't do it. It's like ridiculous. It's not going to happen. So, so one of Prabhupada's godbrothers had written through his disciples that your effort to spread Krishna consciousness is ludicrous. Wow, what a thing to say. Talk about being discouraged. Abdul, your effort to distribute books is ludicrous. Like, why don't you like get a life? Like what a discouraging thing to say. You're useless. In America, they're distributing 1,000 books a day, some devotees. Like, what can you do? It's like, go do something useless. Go clean the bathroom. So, how discouraging would that be? So, Prabhupada wrote back, it was actually to the disciple of this guru. But through the disciple, the guru said, your efforts are ludicrous. And Prabhupada said, it's never ludicrous because our job is just to go out and fight, whether we win or lose. So, if your guru gives an order and you think, I can't do it, but then you can think, but he wants me to try, so I'll try. And it won't get any worse by trying, generally, because if I don't try, then no result. If I do try and there's no result, at least I tried. And if I do try and there's a result, then something happened. So no loss, right? And then you get to depend on Krishna and you get to test your own abilities. I was just speaking to a devotee yesterday, and he was in the Navy. He said, you never realize how much you can do until you're got a sergeant yelling in your ear to do more, do more, do more. So you don't realize you can do that until you're in that environment. So sometimes, Sudharma, you don't realize what you can do until you're like in an environment where you're confronted to do something that you don't think you can do, but your guru wants you to do it. So you're like, okay, well, he wants it. And sometimes the disciple thinks, well, he has faith in me. My guru has faith in me. So let me try it. He thinks I can do it. If he thinks I can do it, well, okay, then I think I can do it. So sometimes it's like that. You get your confidence because your guru has confidence. Or your guru says, yeah, whatever, just do it. Doesn't matter. Success or failure, it doesn't matter. But like I say, if you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of money, it's going to negatively impact devotees, then you might want to say, Guru Maharaj, I think I'm not the right man for this job because I have special potency when I do things like this to mess things up. Like no one could mess it up better than me. So, you may want to express that, right? Like, if you have me do this, then everything's going to become topsy-turvy because I'm really bad at it, right? I'm sure we all have something that we're good at messing up, isn't it? Like, Sudharma, your guru says, I want you to be the temple mechanic. And you go like, I can barely get my cap back on the top of my toothpaste. Like, how am I going to fix a car, And I said, Guru Maharaj, if you make me a mechanic, none of these cars are going to run, and they'll probably be permanently damaged. I'll probably put diesel in a gasoline engine, and I'll, put oil where the windshield washer should go, and it's like don't. So in that case, you might just say, I'll ruin every car. Don't let me do it. I shouldn't do it, right? And so we all have something we do really badly, right? You know what it is, right? Isn't it? Some of us are good at losing things. I just thought we were born with a special shakti to lose things, misplace them, space them out, right? So, yeah, like they say, if your head wasn't screwed to your shoulders, you'd probably forget it. You've heard that one? Yeah. Okay. So in those rare cases, you might want to say no, because it's just going to ruin everything. Otherwise, why not try? Be a soldier. Ours is not to wonder why, ours is just to do or die. That's an ideal. You can embrace that. Okay. What should we prioritize or focus on while we still have association of senior Prabhupada disciples? Keeping in mind that we have to present Prabhupada as is to future generations. Just hear from them and get, the more you hear about Prabhupada, the more you read his books and the more you hear from his disciples, the more you clearly understand his mission and his message. And so once you're clear about his mission and message, that you are the right person to carry it on. And so the more clarity you have about who Prabhupada is, what he wants, what his philosophy is, what it isn't, what his mission is, what it isn't, then you're good to go. You can ask Prabhupada disciples, what in essence do you think, what is the essence of what Prabhupada is teaching and what is the essence of his mission? Learn from them like that. And that's, I think, the job of every devotee in ISKCON. Because we have to represent Prabhupada. And how can you represent him if you don't understand him? Right? And, if you analyze most of my classes, I'm just trying to help my audience understand Prabhupada. Because I think that's the most important thing I can give. And because I'm his disciple, that is what I can give. So why not give it? I mean, I could give so many things, but I think it's important I give that because that I have a position, which is not going to be common, that people had his association who could see him personally, who could feel him, who could feel the whole mood that he had, see the mood, feel the mood, understand what he liked, what he didn't like, what made him happy, what displeased him. That's important. And I've often said that I think one of the greatest compliments a disciple can give to his guru is that His disciples remind people of Prabhupada. His disciples understand Prabhupada and his mission, you know. So when you're with another devotee, then that devotee will think, wow, you're like a disciple of Prabhupada. You have so much of Prabhupada's mercy and understanding of his mission and so forth within you. It's like you're his disciple. What a compliment for the guru to hear that about their disciple. And then we know the movement's in good hands, you know. You might say, well, we're all depending on the GBC. We're depending on all of you, everybody, because you are going to represent in your own area Krishna consciousness, right? Hmm. Hmm. We did not meet Prabhupada in person, so I took one dream of Prabhupada to be true as it fits well what he was teaching. He was pleased that only Rohini and me went to Harinam. I doubted it much, as there was only two of us. Prabhupada was smiling and waved me to come closer as I saw him from the distance. Wow. Coming closer, I saw his disciples were near and he was speaking to them. But or not, I didn't hear it. And in the dream, I heard him saying, if you want to know what I speak, read my books. So I took it as truth, even that was only a dream. Wow, that's like right out of a movie. I can't hear what you're saying. I've said it all in my books. Wow, beautiful. You can write a poem like that. Hmm. And turn out, always waiting for the ripe fruit to take a book. Yeah, they're out there. Clocks in Europe go forward in March 30th. And class for us goes back to regular time. Yeah, okay. So all who came late, I hope you understand that. I guess by your time we started an hour earlier. Bogus gurus give no substance. They're so wishy-washy. You know, sometimes they're so wishy-washy that everybody's like, wow, did you hear that? It's so elevated, I can't even understand it. Isn't it? Sometimes like that. Wow. Essential class about, who's that class by? Chaitanya
You,
Dasa.
Guru Maharaj.
Oh. Hare Krishna. That's the title of this class. Okay. Kama says your beliefs have more influence on you than the absolute truth. Because nothing influences you if you don't believe it, right? And what you believe has the most influence. And if you believe the wrong thing, then yeah, that has influence. Yeah. Yeah. Dwarkadish is the LA temple deity. Yes. I forgot to mention that. I saw a very interesting article recently titled, We Are All Hare Krishnas Now. And the journalist wrote, this is in relation to how the world is changing. It seems that we are all a little bit Hare Krishna now. Do you practice yoga? Are you vegetarian? Do you believe in karma? Do you believe in positive vibes through social media? Then, my friend, you might just be a little bit Krishna conscious. Wow. Perfect. That was in the Times, wasn't it? Or Newsweek or some big magazine. Yeah. 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 You can find the link and post it. There it is. What's it from? Madhuri Bhakti. Sometimes it is said that wherever the pure devotee walks, the whole place becomes purified in all living entities. Can you say something about that? Yeah. Well, like when you go to the Bhajan Kutir or the Samadhi, especially the Bhajan Kutir of great devotees, one of the things you'll hear is that they live there eternally. So wherever they've walked, that place becomes a place of pilgrimage. In 1 year in Los Angeles for the Prabhupada Festival, I think Ridan Anurash took the devotees to all the places that Prabhupada went, all the places he took his walks. and just went there and talked about Prabhupada and what he did there and what he said. Let's speak of his rooms in LA. So, and there's a Vyas Puja offering, which Jill and Yatra found, and where I described all the places Prabhupada went in LA and what he did, just so the LA devotees could go there, or at least understand how fortunate they are. Yeah. So his Shakti is there. But then the question is, what are you going to do with the Shakti when you get it? Go to sleep? Eat gulab jamans, or, take it and use it to elevate yourself. So yeah. Um, it's not necessarily, if you're not in a good state of consciousness, or you're not somewhat elevated, then you won't be able to appreciate that. You won't be able to appreciate the Shakti is there in that place. But it is. When you go to Los Angeles, at Prabhupada is like there. He lived there a lot, spent a lot of time there. So you feel it. Or New York is a tirtha. 26 Second Avenue is a tirtha. Yeah. Prabhupada was there. These are, you can feel his presence. He can speak to you. Whenever I go to Prabhupada's Samadhi in Vrindavan, I always feel him speaking to me, usually chastising me. Maybe that's my guilty conscience speaking. I don't know, but I can hear him a lot. You have to listen, and you can feel his presence in his rooms in Vrindavan so powerfully. Yes. But you also, if you bring Prabhupada in your mind, then your mind becomes a holy tirtha. So, sometimes you may have heard me say, my favorite mantra is Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Meditating on Prabhupada, then I feel like once you meditate on Prabhupada, he's there. You feel his power, you get his power like that. Yes? Very powerful mantra. And Prabhupada writes in Bhagavatam, I believe, that chanting the name of the pure devotee is more powerful than chanting the name of Krishna. Wow, in a sense. As you're meditating on a pure devotee, and like when we chant Gayatri mantra, we meditate on our spiritual master. So to be able to meditate on Prabhupada, I feel like, wow, that's so powerful. Whenever you're in Maya, just meditate on Prabhupada. Just stop and think about him. And he'll be present in your thinking, in your meditation. And you'll be purified by thinking of such a pure devotee. So I would say, visiting the tirthas, the places they've been, it stimulates that thinking, but you could make your mind a tirtha. Why not? Isn't there a song like that? Well, make my mind a temple, mama mana mandiri. So make my heart a tirtha. Why not? Bring in the acharyas into your heart, and your heart can become a tirtha, and wherever you go, you are in a tirtha. Wow. What could be better than that? Right? Save so much money. You don't even have to fly to India. Okay. How deviation happens. What cautions we need to take. I think it's just helpful to understand that deviation is a real possibility, and it just happens unnoticeably, you know. One little deviation goes unnoticed, but now the next deviation is a little further from the original, but it's only a fraction of an inch away from the next deviation. So with each deviation, you're only moving a fraction of an inch. So you don't notice it. But 100 deviations down the road, you're like way out here. And like, What happened? Nobody even noticed how we got here. It's like that, right? Hey, Prabhu, it was a little coffee. I get tired, What's the big deal? It's not like sinful. It's not like eating meat. It's just coffee, a little caffeine. Everybody drinks caffeine. And so, all right. And what's the next deviation after caffeine? I don't know. Cocaine? I guess that's too big of a jump from coffee to cocaine. I don't know. But um, the thing is, we're trying to maintain purity. Like seriously, we're trying to maintain our own purity. And we're seriously trying to maintain the purity of the movement. So deviation is not deviation if the so-called deviation is bringing us closer to Krishna. We've changed this, but it's bringing us closer to Krishna. It's the old thing didn't work. Nobody's inspired by it. It's causing conflict or whatever. Um, so we made an adaptation, and now everybody's more Krishna conscious. That's different. But the basic idea is that deviation happens in such a way that often it's not noticed. And then here's the worst part. This is by far the worst part. So there's all these little changes over time that like Prabhupada disciples notice because no, it wasn't like that when we joined. What's going on now? We notice. But you who come later don't notice because the deviation was normalized. So you don't know, for you, it's normal. Well, I joined in 2024 and now it's 2050. No, we've always done that. Yeah. Well, we didn't always do that in 1968. You just weren't around, so you didn't know. So for you, well, that is the standard. We've always done this. Someone was asking me a question. I forget what it was. Have you ever seen this in ISKCON? And I said, or have you ever heard Prabhupada say this? I go, no, I never heard it. So, we just have to be a little careful about. And it's hard because you'll quote someone in the class who also quoted someone who quoted someone who quoted someone that was on the third level of the deviation of the story. And you don't know. Well, that's the way the story has always been told. Well, when did you join? Well, I joined in 1983. Well, it wasn't told that way in 1973. So somebody messed it up along the way. So you just want to be careful. And I think the most difficult thing is you don't even realize you're doing it. You retell something in a way that, because you didn't remember it properly. And so, I mean, that's okay as long as it doesn't, it's not okay, but it's not the worst thing in the world if it doesn't change the Siddhanta. Now, here we have the definition of ludicrous. So foolish, unreasonable, or out of place as to be amusing. Like, yeah, right. You're going to spread Krishna consciousness in New York. Yeah, right. And Santa Claus is, God. What else is new? It's like that. Ludicrous. Hmm. What is your perspective on where ISKCON is headed in the future in regards to deviations? Well, I can give one answer. Uh, does the deviation become a satsanga? Satsanga means bad association. Well, depends who you're associating with. You're associating with deviants. Yeah. At least it's bad association. Well, you know by association if it's helpful or not. If you're coming out confused, if you're learning things that you've never heard within ISKCON, yeah, that's not necessarily good. Where is ISKCON headed in the future? Well, one answer Prabhupada gave to a similar question is wherever you like, go with it, wherever you take it, wherever we take it. So it's hard to say where it's heading in the future because where it's heading now doesn't mean it's going to head that way later. because it depends on the individual. My intuition is that if Lord Chaitanya mission is to save the world and he wants to do it and the devotees are sincere, then he will use and guide them to correct anything that needs to be corrected in the best way. As long as we remain sincere, then we allow Krishna to rectify us. And, if we're sincere, we're not attached to our egos or being right. We're just attached to doing what's right. And if we're all attached to doing what's right, then right will prevail. If we're attached to, being in the center and having things done our way, then yeah, that's going to destroy ISKCON. So Prabhupada said, if there's no personal motivation, he said, personal motivation is what will destroy ISKCON. So one of the things that happens is if you deviate long enough, you realize, well, that doesn't work. And so you correct it. So deviation doesn't work, and purely following Prabhupada does. So that hopefully will outweigh all other considerations, the pure following of Prabhupada. The problem that I see is a lot of devotees don't understand what Prabhupada wants. And so they just shoot from the hip based on how they see things and how they feel. And how they see things and how they feel may be correct, but sometimes it can contradict with how Prabhupada sees and feels about things. So that's something to consider. Okay, we went overtime. Saturday we can go overtime. You'd stay here all day, right, if I don't stop. Yeah. Um, Prabhupada, the acharyas have cited 13 called Apa Sampradayas, deviant Sampradayas. 13 predominant deviant Sampradayas with deviant philosophies, so-called Vaishnava Sampradayas. So sometimes the deviations are subtle. You don't even notice them or know what they are. But generally, Prabhupada would point them out. So, sometimes we say it's okay to do this, and this, what we say is okay to do, it's not really okay, but we say it's okay because many devotees cannot follow what they should follow. So then rather than just giving up everything, they'll say, okay, do this, but, control it, regulate it, something like that. So it's when it's okay to do this becomes the norm, then you have problems. That's where the problems come. Like we're making adjustments, bigger audience, people are not as ready for the full program, so we make an adjustment. Okay, you don't have to follow all the principles, it's all right, just chant, offer your food, do what you can. And then the adjustment becomes the siddhanta. That's when you're in trouble. Right? When the exception becomes the norm, you're in trouble. Hare Krishna. Feeling very blessed, especially when Prabhupada disciples visit the temple and say, this isn't how we did X or Z in the early days, and we can then fix it, or when they say, you're all being enthusiastic reminds us of early days, knowing that one day we won't have them and we can carry the essence of the movement forward based on their teachings and feedback. Yeah. Someday the movement will fall in your hands. Where are you going to take it? Hare Krishna. Okay. The goal of the teachers is to clarify everything. That's the goal of the teacher. Without being fanatical, without turning people off who can't follow everything, while still encouraging them. and maintaining the purity of the path. Encouraging everybody. That's the idea. Okay. So Esther is going to write a poem, write a song, and Kamini is going to sing it. And what's the chorus going to be? I couldn't hear what you said, but everything you said, you told me in your books, in your books, in your books. Something like that. You know, there's another one, really, a couple of devotees have said this. We weren't used to Prabhupada's accent. I think a lot of you also maybe had difficulty with his accent. When I was first in devotee, I couldn't. There's a lot I couldn't understand, and then I got used to it. And so some devotees said, to make a good sound, when I met Prabhupada, I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I knew everything he was saying was true. Nice song. Couldn't understand a word you're saying, but I knew everything you said was true. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? I just knew in my heart you were speaking the truth to me, but I couldn't understand. Yeah, I couldn't understand, but I know it was true. Oh, beautiful. That sounds like sentimentalism, doesn't it? Oh, you guys are not philosophical. You can't even understand what your guru says, and you're saying it's all true. Well, there is room for that. We don't want to be sentimental. If someone on the street said that, we'd think, oh, you're bogus, right? But there's room for that also. Oh, that's for a t-shirt. Someday the movement will fall in your hands. Where are you going to take it for a t-shirt? Okay. That's a good one. I like it. Chaitanya Dasi, can you send that to Rati Kelly? I like that. That goes along with the other one. The only problem with this ISKCON is I'm not a pure devotee. I need that t-shirt because I'm going to do a retreat in London, and that idea would be really good to have. You're all, every time I say I would make a good t-shirt, you're all empowered to make your own t-shirt. You know, go down to the t-shirt shop and make it. Make two and send me one. That's what one devotee did. I said something in class and she made the t-shirt. So maybe every week I'll get a new t-shirt. And then I'll give a seminar. I'll have 52 t-shirts. And for each section I wear the t-shirt and what I'm saying is on the t-shirt. And then we talk about it. How's that? Sound good? Okay. Retreat in London is only for people at Soho. So if you're not part of Soho, you can't go. It's like kind of like internal management type thing. Well, that's July like 14th or something, 14 to 18. But then I probably 14 to 18th, and then it ends on Friday, and the following Monday I'm going to Lithuania because they're having a festival for the week. But I'll be in London the weekend after the retreat. Then Lithuania, then back to London, and that takes us to the end of July, and then Slovenia at the end of July, and then Italia, like on the 4th or something, 4th of August to the 11th, I think. And then Amsterdam, 11th to like 18th. And then maybe Norway Rath Yatra. We'll see. Not sure yet. I guess I just have to move to Europe. There's so many places to go. Or I have to go there so much that they don't want to see me anymore. Like, okay, don't come. We've seen you enough. Okay. Hare Krishna to everyone. I'm going to say goodbye. Look at the schedule, yeah. Oh, I have time. Third, fourth, and fifth. Third and fourth, I'm free. I got invited to Germany. They're doing that weekend, they're doing something. I could go to Germany for a day or two. Yeah. So you can all come to Lithuania, you can all come to Slovenia, you can all come to Italy, and you can all come to the Netherlands. You're all invited. We'll have a party. Swiss Alps. Oh yeah, okay. That would be a good idea. Rejuvenation. Got some good air up there, right? Yeah, that would be good. Okay. Norway would be after Amsterdam if I go. They're having Rath Yatra right after Amsterdam. And then to Switzerland to hide, and we won't tell you where I am. We'll just hide. But that's pretty much what I'm doing here, rejuvenating. You won't believe when you see me. I'm actually stronger than I was before. I can, at Gaur Purnima, I was dancing. Everybody's like, oh my God, you're dancing so much. It was like, well, I have to test my new heart to see, like what it lets me do. So I'll just keep dancing until I get tired. And I was like, didn't get tired. So I'm actually stronger. Well, muscle-wise, by the time I get to Europe, muscle-wise, I'll be stronger. I still have to build that up. But in terms of endurance, it's much greater. I sleep a little more, but when I'm awake, yeah, you won't even be able to keep up with me. We'll go on the walks and you'll all be like, can we sit down? I'm like, old lady, useless. And I'll just, yeah. The other day we got lost. We walked for 2 hours. Krishna's Maternath and I go for walks, and I wanted score per name, so I wanted to chant another 16 rounds. And we got lost. So by the time we got out, I chanted 14. So if we weren't lost, I would have. So I told Maternath, I said, I'm not lost. This is Yoga Maya. She gets me lost so I can take so much time so I can chant rounds. Hare Krishna. As I told you, I don't know if you know this, I have 2 months of rounds to make up. And if you do the math, that's 960 rounds. So as of Gaur Purnima, I started, make my vow to make up rounds every day. So every day I have to chant extra rounds because I don't want to leave my body not having committed to the vow I made to Prabhupada. So I have to make it up because I couldn't chant when I was sick. After a while, I could chant, but I couldn't control my mind. I was so, and I thought, why chant? It's just aparad. So now we're making it up. So I'm feeling inspired and now get back to my vow. So every day. We're going to go off into the forest and chant extra rounds until, yeah. So sometime this year, they'll all be made up. How can I ask you to chant 16 rounds if I don't even do it? If I don't make them up, how can I ask you? It's bogus, isn't it? So I have to make it up. Yeah. Just so you know, I'm not bogus. Maybe you were thinking I am. He doesn't even chant his rounds. Like 2 months he didn't chant. Well, I'm making it up now. I'm doing it for all of you. An interesting thing that to meditate on is that we're chanting our rounds for ourselves. We're reading for ourselves, but actually we're doing it for others because from this, we become purified, we get realization, and that's what we share with other people. And so, a lot of times when I'm chanting my rounds, I'm thinking, actually chanting my rounds for my disciples so that I can show up with some realization. I mean, if I'm just myself and I fall into Maya, it's just me, it doesn't really bother other people. But when you have to show up in Krishna consciousness to the world, then your chanting is not just for you, it's for them. Isn't it? So I'm chanting my extra rounds for Prabhupada, my commitment, and for all of you. Okay. We will end on this happy note. And all I can say is, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.